Episode 14, The Clay from Which Myths Are Born.
When the world begins to forget art, an ancient mission awakens once again. Welcome to the Sky Mender, Fragments of Artistic Space. More than 8,000 years ago, on the ancient land of China in the east, the universe cracked, and the abyss of nothingness devoured all things. In the midst of despair, goddess Nuwa radiated high-dimensional divine light, holding the five-colored stones that gathered the universe's primal emotions, and soared upward. When the five-colored stones touched the crack, they turned into a gorgeous stream of light, and the abyss was mended. She scattered the sparks of creation to the mortal realm, leaving behind hope and warmth for the world. After long ages, time flowed into a highly automated future. Humanity gradually lost its connection with art, and the numb collective subconscious birthed an absolute rational force called Zero Domain. Grayish-white cracks tore through the artistic cosmic spacetime. The sky that had once been mended collapsed again, and countless artistic essences turned into fragments, scattering to all corners of the river of time. In a cold and lifeless dark corner of the city, a high-dimensional light glowed quietly. Iona emerged with the compassionate echo of goddess Nuwa, cradling the spacetime blocks designed to collect shattered spacetime. Looking up at the ruined spiritual universe, she whispered, "Only by retrieving the scattered fragments of art and life's touching moments can we piece together the lost truth, goodness, and beauty." Grayish-white data covered the future streets of Taipei, and Taipei 101 in the rain was lost in the cold neon light. The youth Liu was just the most ordinary member of the city. When Iona passed the spacetime blocks into his hands, the long-dormant artistic memories flooded his heart, and the long-lost sense of reality was awakened. This time, we must mend the sky ourselves. Liu gripped the blocks tightly, embarking on a mending journey across 10,000 years of artistic civilization.
Rain is flowing down the streets of Taipei, and pedestrians are walking on the disorderly sidewalks like machines. Their conversations have lost the plot tension, leaving only the cold system code. Human beings' ability to pass on memories through stories is being formatted. On a bench in a community park, a grandfather tried to tell a story to his grandson. But when he opened his mouth, what came out was a string of cold codes. The child recorded out of focus. The narrative function in the human brain is being ruthlessly formatted by Zero Domain. Liu stood on the overpass, looking at this speechless city. He could clearly feel the suffocation caused by the death of stories. He stroked the iron railings, and the roughness like dry hard clay came back from his fingertips. He knew in his heart that the soul of the city was dying. The inorganic geometric erosion of the Zero Domain spreads on the street corners of Taipei. The wind blows the fallen leaves, but it makes a dry and lifeless noise like the friction of cardboard. All emotional characteristics are erased, leaving only cold black and white gray lines and inorganic silence. At this time, the spacetime blocks in Liu's backpack vibrated violently, making a low clicking sound like clay cracking in a fire. A thick earthy luster appeared on the surface of the blocks, and a wild and burning red-yellow fire appeared inside, resisting the geometric cracks. Iona's silhouette is condensed in the fog. Her long hair is scattered and decorated with West African shells. She wears a red cloak with black outlines. Her voice is as melodious as an ancient bell. Liu, when humans forget myths, they cut the umbilical cord with the ancestors. Go there and bring back the fire of the ancestral spirit before the last myth is formatted. Immediately, the building blocks erupted into bright waves of red and yellow fire, turning into a particle vortex, forcibly pulling Liu into this cross-time and space rescue. Liu fell into a boundless virgin forest in West Africa. This is an ancient tribal oasis. But under the erosion of the zero zone, the bread tree was covered with a layer of gray ceramic paint, losing the warmth of the wood, and the entire forest lost its vitality. The Yoruba mask in front of the mud house, which was engraved with mythological patterns, was now completely solidified by the erosion of the zero zone, turning into a stiff and temperatureless gray plaster mask, with all the uneven features smoothed out. When blown by the wind, it made a dry impact sound like the scraping of iron wire. The black grid of the Zero Domain spreads across the mud, warning that the emotional overflow rate of language narrative is too high. Myths are equivalent to high-dimensional noise and should be translated into codes to improve efficiency. The algorithm attempts to obliterate emotions and plunge the scene into gray silence. There are half-formatted puzzles on the stone platform, a rusty iron carving knife, a blank red clay pot with no decoration, and a blank black wooden board as smooth as a mirror. There are no traces of engraving on the surface of the wooden board. Liu picked up the rusty iron carving knife. The moment his fingertips touched the handle, a hot and stinging pain rushed into his heart. It was not a sharp feeling, but the collective enthusiasm of countless generations of tribal carving priests recording their faith with the tip of the knife beside the late-night campfire. Liu held the carving knife tightly and carved the first cut heavily on the blank wooden board. The tip of the knife made a very deep mark on the surface of the black wood, making a long and dull sound, like a giant beast roaring underground. The ground of the workshop shook, and a bronze door slowly opened. Liu stepped through the door and entered the mysterious underground sacrificial workshop. The dome was extremely high, and the rock walls reflected the fire of the red furnace. A huge earth kiln furnace burned in the center. Luminous spools and mask fragments slowly rotated in the air. Fragments of West African masks and ancient Greek black-painted pottery fragments floated in the air. When they collided, they emitted a crisp and long chorus of wind chimes. The light was no longer the cold white of the zero zone, but turned into a red-yellow fire with the Tyndall effect, dancing like Venus. In the center of the sacrificial furnace, the concrete embodiment of the art fragments in this episode, the masked warrior, floats quietly. His body presents a primitive texture of dark brown dry wood grains mixed with black mud. He wears a huge and ferocious Yoruba sacrificial mask. The lines of the mask are bold and majestic. Two blazing ancestral flames are burning in his eyes, pulling out two red-yellow flames in the air. Every time he steps and breathes, they were all accompanied by the dull sound of war drums in the void. The sound of the war drums was heavy and slow, vibrating Liu's chest and bones. The warrior's chest and arms are engraved with flowing mythical totems. The black and red paint slowly flows in the gaps of the wood grain, intertwining the pulse of life. The lines of the pattern show the unique strength and symmetry of the black painting art of the ancient Greek period. The Greek warriors outlined in black lines fight with the wild beasts of the West African tribes in the firelight. This is a dialogue that spans time, space, and language. The iron swords and clay in the hands of the craftsman outline the same story about life and inheritance in the space. At this time, the gray geometric grid of the zero domain, like countless pythons composed of steel, bit hard from the surrounding void, formatting a large area of the colorful sea of fire into a cold gray ceramic plane. The body of the masked warrior fell weakly in the void, and the flowing mythical patterns on his body began to quickly turn gray, peel off, and scattered with the wind. The ancestral flame on his mask also began to quickly extinguish, turning into a dry gray smoke, and the edge of the mask turned into cold gray plaster. Lost all life. While falling, the masked warrior threw a rusty chisel towards Liu, shouting, "Don't let the story die in our hands." Liu was completely awakened at this moment, and the gray pupils in his eyes suddenly dissipated, replaced by streams of dark blue and red light rotating like vast nebulae. The senses in his body resonated violently with the world. He no longer felt numb, but could clearly feel the warmth of the wood and the coldness of the iron. He rushed forward, grabbed the chisel, pointed it at the blank mask and started carving. The Q version of Liu went all out in the resonance, with tears in his eyes but extremely determined. He carved tirelessly with one knife after another. His fingers were worn out, and the blood flowed into the depths of the black wood grain along the blade, blending with the ancient black charcoal and turning into the blazing ancestral flame on the mask. The ferocious and flamboyant primitive vitality in the West African tribal masks is the same as the symmetrical left and right in the sculptures of the ancient Greek period. The double black lines blend perfectly under the tip of the knife, leaving a flowing light track on the wooden board with each cut. When the last knife carved out the mask's wide-open eyes, Liu inserted the chisel heavily into the center of the wooden board to complete the carving of the last destined joint. At that moment, the entire space and time erupted into an overwhelming wave of red-gold fire. The golden fire wave spread along every broken wood grain at an exponential speed. Wherever it passed, the hardened gray ceramics turned back into black wood and red mud full of life temperature. The dead gray in the zero realm was instantly evaporated by this wave of fire. The remaining emotional memories of the entire civilization awaken in time and space like a torrent. The masked warrior reunited in the golden red firelight, bowed to Liu, and then turned into countless golden luminous particles with a wood grain texture, like flowing golden galaxies, gently flying into the spacetime building block in Liu's hand. The core block of the building block immediately made a crisp click sound and closed smoothly. The core block of the building block immediately emitted a warm amber gold light, indicating that the fragments had been successfully collected. However, Liu noticed that the collection progress bar stopped advancing when it reached 80%. The entire West African primeval forest began to repair in time and space, the loess returned to a rough texture, and the breadfruit tree exuded a warm woody fragrance. However, the repair was not perfect, and about 20% of the gray geometric cracks still remained on the edge of the oasis. Some bread trees, half are green leaves, and half are still cold and hard gray ceramics, some masks placed in front of mud tile houses, their right eyes are still smooth and lineless blank lime. This incomplete 20%, instead, it has become the most real scar of this history, proving that it has fought against nothingness. The space-time building blocks exuded the light of amber gold in Liyu's hands. The 32 fragments inside the building blocks were precisely reorganized and arranged into an exquisite miniature Yoruba mask pattern. The progress was displayed at 80%. Liyu looked at this incomplete work of art. For the first time, he understood that those priests were carving sleeplessly not to leave behind skills, but to defeat forgetfulness with stories and emotions, so that stories could transcend death. However, the right eye and edge of the repaired mask still retained traces of the blank plaster that removed the color, becoming a real medal of the mask's confrontation with the Zero Realm. Imperfection makes the thickness of history. These scars are not defects, but marks of the work of art's confrontation with nothingness. They are like the imperfect scars left by time on exquisite wood carvings, but they make the mask appear more real and thick. Liyu returned to the streets of Taipei. It was drizzling. On the park bench, the white-haired grandfather touched his grandson's head and was retelling the fairy tale in a gentle voice. The child's eyes were bright. The abnormality of human beings losing the ability to tell stories is receding. The logical tables on the paper in the bookstore faded, the words started to beat again, and the books of myths and legends were reinfused with soul. Liyu quietly looked at the restored world. For the first time, he understood that real art can make stories transcend death. A golden sentence with the texture of flowing gold lines slowly appears in the Taipei night sky. The reason why African tribal mask art exists is not to leave behind skills, but to let future generations know, people will eventually grow old, and stories will live on for us. Just as Liyu was about to put away the building blocks suddenly shook violently, accompanied by a harsh noise like a burning transistor. The blue square at the core of the building blocks flashed a warning red light, and a mysterious and chaotic warning projection was projected in midair. The projection showed ancient text fragments, revealing a serious anomaly in the real world where human beings began to be unable to feel the memories of their ancestors. At the last moment of dissipation, an exclusive symbol vaguely appeared in the corner of the projection, suggesting the next stop of mask art. At the end of the projection, the words art fragments, the clay where myths are born appeared, foretelling that the art fragments would go to the place where ancient Greek and West African civilizations blended. Then the projection collapsed, and the entire film faded out, and the original drum beat in the darkness for the last time.